let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. And thank you for attending this training and welcome. So this training is on using the public user interface in ArchivesSpace. So a very in-depth look at it. I'm Brittany Newberry, the music and popular culture archivist at Georgia State University in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm joined today by my fellow trainer, Miloche. Miloche, would you like to introduce yourself and where you are?
Sure. I'm Miloche Kottman. I work at the University of Kansas Libraries, and I'm the head of cataloging and archival processing.
Awesome, thank you. So in advance of this training, you received an email with an agenda for the training with links to all of the materials you will need to participate in this workshop and to continue learning after the training is over. We may not stick exactly to the agenda, but we will take the planned breaks included in the agenda at the appropriate time. Included in the course materials is a workbook we will be using in today's training. You can use this to test what you have learned and by creating examples within your own ArchivesSpace instance or in the ArchivesSpace sandbox available via our website. And we'll put the sandbox link in the chat. You can access the ArchivesSpace sandbox from the ArchivesSpace Getting Started website, which is linked at the bottom of your agenda. In addition to the course materials in the Google Drive, you've also been provided with a list of resources at the bottom of your agenda about using ArchivesSpace and ArchivesSpace membership that you may find useful. These are our most frequently used resources and good references to have on hand for the future. There's also a training evaluation and at the end of the agenda, so we hope you complete that after this training. So we are using Zoom webinar for this training, and your microphone and camera are both muted. If you'd like to ask questions of the trainer, we ask that you use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. If you have a general question or need some form of assistance, please feel free to reach out in the chat. Some questions will be read and answered during allocated time for Q&A. We are using the latest version of ArchivesSpace for this training, so that version is 3.3.1. If you are using an earlier version of ArchivesSpace, keep in mind some of the features you see today may not be available to you at home. We also won't be able to troubleshoot issues with your own implementations of ArchivesSpace at your organization. But if you have a question or issue with your implementation, please email us at archivespacehome@lyrasis.org, and we'll put that email address in the chat, and it should be in your agenda or workbook. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the training. I'm going to share my screen. So first up, we will be doing a functional overview of the public user interface. And as I said, this is an in-depth look at the public user interface. The public user interface itself went through a whole rework in an earlier version. I believe it was 2.0. So if you are earlier than that, the public user interface will not look like this, but you can see the most up-to-date version in the sandbox. So we're hoping after this workshop, you'll know how to navigate the ArchivesSpace public user interface, be able to identify the different record types in the PUI, know how to use classifications to group related material, be able to make or request customizations to the PUI, and know how to instruct your staff and researchers on using it. You may not be familiar with a lot of these things if you haven't taken an ArchivesSpace Basics workshop, like the 1 or 2 day workshops, or if you don't have practical experience with ArchivesSpace sufficient enough to create and navigate records with minimal guidance. If you haven't done any of those workshops, you may want to look at the recordings available on YouTube just to help familiarize yourself with ArchivesSpace. But this training is being recorded and you'll be able to look at it later in case something doesn't make sense to you. So ArchivesSpace includes a public user interface, as you see. This publishes the archival description that is entered on the staff side. So whatever you're generating on the staff side, most of it is available for users to see in this public side. Whenever you see a public checkbox and you check it, it will appear on this side after saving. There's some things that get published automatically, like subjects, but other things that don't. And then there's things that will never be publicly available. So there's certain fields that you don't have to worry about. If you're interested in what is published and what isn't, you can visit, if you're a member, you can visit the help center and look at the various records to see. And as we go through the record types, you can see what gets published as we work on that today. So the use of this interface is completely optional, and we're hoping this training will help to guide whether or not you want to use it or just help you learn more about it. So you can also, if you don't want to use this, just export your data into different data types, file types, and import it into a different system. So what you're looking at now is the default out-of-the-box public user interface. This is what it looks like for anyone who just has it. It's not customized, there's nothing going on. And if you've looked at other people's, you might be like, well, they have all this like text and a logo and all this stuff. We'll talk about more on how you do that later, but that is because they went through minimal customization or a lot of customization. So not everyone's will look like this, and some people will just keep the out of the box. So as you're like entering information into the public user interface or into the staff interface, it gets indexed and put into the public user interface. So you will have this landing page associated with your implementation, and it will provide access to your resource records, your component descriptions, your digital object records, your accession records, agents, subjects, classifications, and even your top containers, all of that. And you'll see that there are various tabs up here that are associated with those types of records. But the public interface also allows you the ability to browse and sort these record types on various parameters, such as the holding repository. So if you have more than one repository in your implementation, then all of them will appear in the same public interface, and you're able to browse based on that repository. The associated, you can browse on names, subject headings, and various digital object files. As I said, this is the default home page without any customizations. And you must always use the public checkbox in the staff interface to display a particular record or part of a record in the public interface. So I can show you what that looks like from the staff side, just to give you a brief overview of how that functions. So you go back to the staff interface and you log in. Don't worry about changing a password. And you can say you already have a resource record created and you want to edit it or add to it. So we'll go into Krispy Kreme. We'll go into edit. Everyone loves a good donut. And then we're like, we need to add a note to this. So you see all the notes associated. We're going to add a note. We're going to say that we need to add a general note. And we're going to call it, let's say we have to add in harmful language now. And then we just, in content, collection contains harmful language. And you see here where it has published question mark. We're going to check those. We're going to check that. And we're going to save the resource so we make sure it appears in the public user interface. And then you see up here that you also have the chance to just publish all, and that will publish everything with a checkbox. And then you have the option to view publish. So when we click on that, we get taken back to the public interface, right into this record where we have everything published. And we'll see right there that our harmful language note appeared under additional description. So that has been published along with everything else that had a checkbox that was filled. So that's how that functions from the staff side into this side. You've probably seen that in other trainings, depending on what trainings you've been involved in or what you know about ArchivesSpace. So from there, let's talk about how this generally works overall. We're going to get into browsing and searching, and then get into record types and that such. So we're back on the home page of the public user interface, connects to that. Associated with our implementation. If you ever need to get back to this homepage, you can always click. Usually it's your logo or the title of your ArchivesSpace instance here at the top is always linked to the landing page for the public interface. So that's what you would click on to get back here. If you're interested in seeing very specific things associated with repositories, collections, that kind of thing, you can click on each of these tabs up here on this top menu. So let's start by just generally browsing. So if you want to see all the repositories associated with your public interface, you'd go over here and you just click on the repositories tab, and we'll list all the repositories, give you a number as well as just a listing of them. So the name and the number of collections associated with them. So that's how you would find all the repositories. And when you click on them, you would go into that information and see more information about that repository. You supply that data, obviously, on the staff side when you set up your repositories. So if you have more, they would all be listed here. And I don't know if there's a limit on repositories, but you can have pretty much as many as you need. So we're going to go back to the landing page. To get a more in-depth browsing, you usually need to have a lot of things set up in ArchivesSpace, like we're using collections, your subjects, your names, in order to have those as filters when you're browsing and searching. So if we're clicked on collections here and we're seeing all the collections associated with both repositories, not just one. So we're seeing all of the 17 collections available in both repositories. And you'll see on the side here that we can search within these results. So if we just want student records, we can search and that will filter our results and give us everything that has student as a term in it. So it's keyword searching there, and notes and titles, that kind of thing, and giving us the records associated with it. So it's less than the 17 we saw. We can go back, or if you're don't want that term, you can always exit out and it removes the term and goes back to all results appearing. You also have the ability to sort your browse results. So these are default is title. Let me actually click here so I'm certain about that. Default is title ascending, but when you are searching within them, that default becomes relevance to your search. So you can sort it by relevance, title ascending or descending, or year ascending or descending. So those are your options when sorting all of your collections in the browse. And it's similar in most browse lists. That's how you can sort. So if we wanted to do year ascending, it would sort them. And that's based on the dates provided in the collection level information. So you have to have that. It's a required field to fill out anyway, but you have to have that within the collection level, and then it sorts by that. So that's just what you need to remember when sorting by years. It's sorting by, when it comes to collections, it's sorting by the dates provided in that top level information. Go back to title ascending. So you'll see on the side here that we have these additional filters. So we can filter by subject term, but also by years. And again, in the dates field of the collection record. And then you see additional records. So if you have more than one repository, and even if you have one, you can limit it to that one repository. It will show up here, even if you have one, but you could choose which repository. you can choose subjects, and it usually does this in order of the ones with the most records associated with it. So you'll see there's 2 that has archives as a grouping, and then these all have 1 collection associated with them, that kind of thing. So it starts with the most, and you can do more, and this is dependent on all the subjects you have in the created, and if they're not linked to collection records, they won't appear on the side here. And then you can sort by language. So if you've chosen language other than English, those will all be over here as well, and English as well. So if you know, oh, I need a collection that's in Spanish, you can choose that, and that's like the collections in Spanish, not necessarily that the information, like the finding aid information is written in Spanish. As you can see, we clicked on that, and we have 2 collections. One, the finding aid is written in Spanish, but the other is the English translation of that finding aid, but they're both, the collection materials are written in Spanish, and that's what that is referring to, the language of materials. That's what that is getting that from, that note. And then you can also filter by names. So that's your agent records. So it's organizations, people, families, software, corporations, that kind of thing. So you have those listed. And again, like subjects, it will show you the number of records associated with those names. So when you click on African burial ground, you'll see just 1 collection associated with it. And then you can go into that collection and see more. I'm not going into any of these records because we're going to go more in depth later on. So you will see all the aspects of these later on. So we'll go back home. So that is like browsing through collections, and then it's very similar with digital materials. If you look at the digital materials, which these are your digital objects on the staff side, they're called digital materials, and you see they're listed as digital records. And so that's like how they're identified on the public side. And you'll see that you have the ability to sort them as well by title, relevance, and year. You can filter your results as well by terms and years. And then the additional filters here only show repositories. It may show others depending on what you've added in the sub-records of your digital objects. So it's really dependent on what information you've saved and added to those fields. So, you know, you have the ability to add more, but most people keep them pretty basic. But if you're interested and want more you can add to digital objects, there is a digital objects training on the YouTube channel for ArchivesSpace. So I recommend checking that out to learn more. So that's what digital materials browsing looks like. And we'll go into one of our repository-wide browsing. So like subjects, these are all the subjects associated with both of your repositories, because you create them for one, it's created for all, and they all appear here. And with this, you get similar like filtering, but you don't filter by year because dates aren't associated with subjects. You only can filter by terms, and then you can filter by repository and sort based on title, no date, that kind of thing. And names is similar, but you can filter by type when it comes to date names, which are your agent records. That's because there's multiple types of agent records. So there's person, family, corporation, or organization, and software. So you can filter by that. So if you only want people, you can click on person, and all persons will be, and you can click on these to get records associated with them, as well as more information about that person. And then you can be like, oh, I want all of them from this repository, and you can do even more filtering. So this just helps your researchers and you narrow down your results, so you get less results as you're browsing through the interface. So that is browsing of the public interface. Are there any questions about browsing before I move on? Don't say anything in chat or Q&A. So I will move on to searching the public user interface. So when it comes to searching, there is both basic searching and advanced searching of ArchivesSpace in the public user interface. The basic is what we call the Google style keyword searching. And then advanced gives you like your Boolean operators, if you're familiar with those, like the and, or, not. So you can do even more in-depth searching and get more results, similar to how you would search library databases. Unfortunately, unless it's a digital object, you're not going to get that exact article like how you would in a library database, but you would get to that finding aid or that record that they could request to see. You guys know what it's like in archives. So when you're searching in here, the first thing on the landing page that most people notice is the search box. And this is where you would enter your search terms. The default is the search based on keyword. So that is the general default. That's how most people search databases, Google, anything that they're just doing keywords. So if we wanted everything with photos in it, you could just type photo in there and click search. You don't have to do anything else. You just search and it shows all results. This is a very small repository, but we have all things associated with it. But it's not just collection records. It searches everything that you have publicly available. So notes fields, collection records, digital materials, process your accession records, subjects, names, your classification records, all those, if they have that term in it, it will appear here as part of your results. So, and it will start, the results will show relevance is the default, but relevance is generally collection records when you're doing a search. So those tend to appear at the top of the results. And then as you get further down, you can see, oh, we now a subject term with photos. And then we have these subseries and files that have photo in somewhere in it. And you can see these appear further down. So any archival objects would appear further down in your results. But you can change that as you're looking at them. You can choose to sort differently. So you can sort based on title, year, and relevance, just like browsing. You can also filter your results like browsing with terms and years, and then you have the additional filters. So what's added here, less different from browsing, is that you have a type. So this refers to if it's an archival object, like your series and file, if it's the collection level, subject, that kind of thing. Digital materials would appear over here too if it appeared in your results. So you can click on that type and it will filter the results to just things that are archival objects. So your subseries, your files, and your series. And I didn't mention this earlier, but when you're looking at the results when browsing or searching, there are certain things that will appear in the preview box that you see. So as you can see, when we're looking at these archival objects, we can see the title. So we see that the title of this subseries is photo albums. You get the type. So we see that this is a subseries, and down here we see that it's file. If it is one that has top container information and then like child container information, it will give you that information as well. So you can get like the physical information about it. So box number, folder number. And then if it has an identifier associated with it, you'll see that here as well. The note that is typically out of the box appears with these preview boxes is the scope and content. So what is in the collection, because that's usually what people want to know, what's in this. But when you get to archival objects, it likes to pull that information from the top level of the collection if it's hasn't been added to that archival object on the staff side. So it will say from the collection and show you that information. So it gives you a preview of what's in the scope and contents note for that item. We'll also give you dates. These can either be from that record itself or be pulled from the collection, the top level of the collection. And then down here, you'll see these breadcrumbs, the hierarchy. So you'll see what repository is found in, the collection is found in, and then the level above it. So this would be the series, what series it's found in. So you can trace where the hierarchy of it, just like how you build it out and on the south side. So that's how these preview boxes function. And they're different based, like how these are colored or dependent on what type of record they are. So it's green for archival objects. But if you look, you can see that it's red for collections and you have purple for subjects. So it's, they like to make sure things stand out, and which is great because people can automatically, once they learn the system, like, oh, that's a collection record. I need archival objects. Let me scroll down and see if they're here, or let me change the type, that kind of thing. So you can easily point out and be like, oh, yes. And then they have the identifier information as well, and they can get the physical storage information and stuff like that. These, so when you're looking at scope and contents note, they do show the label that you added. So when you label it on the staff side, so these are scope and content notes, are abstract notes, that kind of thing. Those are the things that will be your like default in the preview box. So that's what the search results look like when you just do a typical search. We just typed in a keyword, and as you can see, that keyword appears up here highlighted. It does not get highlighted throughout the search results. It's just highlighted up here. So you're like, oh, okay, this is the word that I searched for. This is a term I typed in. If you're like, oh, I didn't mean to type that. I wanted to type photographs, not photo, which this will search anything that has that, those letters like in that order, like it would do, it does that. So you don't have to type photograph, as you can see. Let's see, I think photographs here somewhere else. It will show like photo albums, photographs, the term. So you don't have to do that, but some people might not have realized that, and they might just go in and refine the search. So this will appear similar to the landing page, and you can do similar things. Keyword search, do an advanced search if you need to, and just click the search bar, and then it will update it. Again, it's showing all the results with photo and photograph, because those are listed. But we got even more because some of them didn't want to show up. So we've got some different ones because of how it searches. Like keyword search, as people can know, doesn't always get what you want, and you may need to do several other searches. So we have photographs, and there are different results than what we saw earlier. But then you're like, I didn't want to search photographs at all. You can go over here and click new search. When you click new search, you're taken to a new page, which is this search button up here. That is for searching. The interface, it looks different than the home page because it is just the search bar and your ability to do advanced search. So it's just those features of the interface. So new search takes you out of your search results. You no longer have them, and you're just starting a completely new search. So we can be like, oh, I wanted to search for scrapbooks, not photographs. So you can see all the results for scrapbook highlighted, and again, have the options to filter, start new searches, that kind of thing, and similar results. And you can see the green versus the red kind of thing. So yeah. And then when you're back on the public interface, you can get into more in-depth searching, so more advanced searches. So here are this is where you enter terms, as I said, but then you can limit by record type. So you can choose to just search within the collections, or just search the digital materials. If you know what you want is digital and you're not looking for the finding aid, you're just seeing if there's a digital object for this item in the public interface, you can do that. You can limit to digital materials. But if you just say search all record types, it will do that. But you have those options. And then you can change the search field. So you have the ability to search by keyword, title, creator, subject, notes, and identifier. So keyword searches all of these fields regardless. And then if you choose one of them, like title, it will only give you the results where that is the title of that record. So we searched for photo, and all we got was things that have photo in the title. So these, this field of the record. So see, we only got 3 results, and one of them is a subject record. So if you change it similar to notes, it will only search those notes field. The only issue is when you do that, you're not quite certain, because it searches all notes that you've added to a record. So the preview box does not show you that note field that it's in. It could be an abstract, but you're not certain unless it's in the portion that's being previewed. So you would have to go into the record and read. So here we see, oh, there's photo in the notes, but not everywhere do we have that. So it could be a note other than scope and contents. It could be in the bio, it could be another abstract, general note, that kind of thing, any note that you've added and published. So just keep that in mind. And then you have the ability to search by date. So this is a dates field. You can search by, say, if we want just records from 1990 to present, so 2023, we can search. And that will give us all of the records that have dates within that time span. So we see 2003, 2017, 1910, 2014, 1980, 2001. So you can search just by dates and don't have to add any search terms to the search term field. You do have the ability to search by date. And it will pull from the dates field depending on what's added to it. So just keep that in mind. So collection level requires dates field, but let's see. If you didn't add dates to your files or to your scope and contents, it might not pull that, but those can also translate from the collection level. So it really just depends. But if you want people to be able to search by dates, I recommend adding them to the fields for your files and your series. So we're going to go back to the landing page. So, and then if you want to start doing like Boolean searches, so your and or not searches, you can add rows, and you can add as many rows as you need. And this will set up the advanced search, and you will choose an operator. So and or not. So if you want photo and a scrapbook, you will do one of these advanced searches and click search. No records found, not a thing in this implementation. But if you want photos and let's see, I'm just gonna type in album, and you're like, I want them to be within the 1990s, and click search. Voila, we have one result, Krispy Kreme Corporations. They have photographs in it. They have photo albums, and they are dated between with 1990 to now within that date frame. So that will help you to do even narrow searches and allow you to get fewer results that may help you find materials associated with your research, or help researchers find more items associated with them. So if you want to continue, you can continue to add and add rows. If you're like, no, I don't want any more, you can remove them. And as I said, you have 3 operators, and then you still have the ability to change the search field. So it can be, the first one can be keyword, but the other one you want is to search the title of the records. You can see that when you're doing and, you don't have the ability, or when you're doing an advanced search, you don't have the ability to limit by record type for the second search box, because it goes based on the first one. So that is for all records. You can't search unless you want to just search collections for all of them. You have to keep it with search all record types. So if you limit it to collections, this will also just search collections. So remember that. So if you change this to title, you are searching the title of collection records. So that is searching. Let's see. Anything else?
Brittany, there's a
Yes.
question in the Q&A that you could probably go ahead and address now.
Yeah. Let's see. I found that, oh yes, I was going to mention that. I found that truncating a search without using an asterisk gives me no records found. Brittany suggested that truncated terms without an asterisk can be used. Can you please clarify? So when you're searching based on dates and you don't put a search term in there, you don't have to use an asterisk. It assumes an asterisk. When you are truncating, have a search term in the term field, you should use an asterisk to truncate. So that will show everything that starts with photo and has like photograph, that kind of thing, as you can see. So this is showing everything with photo in its records, like all the record types. But it also will show photos with an S, photographs, that kind of thing. I hope that answers the question. So truncating without an asterisk really only works when you're just searching by dates. And if you search photo, like as an example, if you search photo without the asterisk, you won't get all results because you're just getting where it's photo. For some reason, it will show photographs for some, but I haven't figured out why. Malaka, do you have any thoughts on that? Or
No, that's the main thing I don't like about it. I don't know enough about Solar to know if there's a setting that you could do on the back end that makes it so that it automatically truncates or not. But most setups that I've seen don't. So I'm assuming it's not possible. But
yeah,
like I said, I'm not the back end person.
yes, you may want to talk to whoever handles the back end, like API configurations, that kind of thing, to see if that's possible. But I say always use an asterisk. And if you want exact, I also recommend using quotes. So if you're searching and you want a specific collection and you have too many collections in your repository, you can do quotations and it will bring up that exact result. So that's another way. You can also do that with subject terms, like just search with quotes to get that exact term in any record. So that is an option for searching that I meant to point out. Do you want me to go ahead and answer more questions, Malaka? Because I'm...
No, we could come back at the end.
Okay. Well, I think I am done.
Oh, well, if you are done, then you could go ahead and answer the question about Boolean searching, since we're talking about searching.
Yes, so the question about Boolean searches is question for Boolean searching, what is the order of operations? For instance, if I do A and B or C, does that become A and B, parentheses A and B, or C, where if C is true, it doesn't matter if A and B are true or false, or A and B or C in parentheses, where A would still have to be true for a result to be considered a match. Oh gosh. So for Boolean search, it does depend on the operator you're using. I have to put my librarian hat on for a second. So it does depend on what operator you're using, because if you're saying and you want this in A search box and this in the second search box to both be in your results. So, but if you say or, you're saying that it's either or, like I want this A to be there, or I want B to be there. And then if you're saying not, you're saying, I definitely want results with A, like I definitely want results with photos in it. But in the second one, you're putting scrapbooks and you don't want anything that has scrapbooks. So it is an order operation. So this first one is the determining factor from depending on the operator. And Malaka, do you have anything to add for that? It's been a while for me.
I don't think any of our patrons have ever tried a very long, complex string. It certainly would be easier if you had like a command line kind of search in here where you could see that, because you can't do the parenthesis thing. You could experiment by doing all your ands and then or in the middle with an and to see if that works. But I don't know that there's any documentation that describes a complex search with, 4 or 5 different parameters all at the same time.
Yeah. ArchivesSpace gives the option for this advanced searching just for people who are interested in that, but it's not really, not a lot of people do that because you are just searching finding aids. But I would say test it out, see what happens. There's a sandbox, feel free to use that as your test instance rather than trying to break your own. Do we have any other questions? Okay, I think next up was a 10-minute break. We're a little ahead of schedule, which is totally fine. So we are going to take a 10-minute break until 52 after the hour, let's say 53 after the hour. Yeah, 53 after hour, and then we'll come back and Malaka will take over to go over the different record types. But if you have questions during the break, feel free to put them in the Q&A and we'll do those before we get into the rest of the training. Sound good?
Works for me.
See you all at 53 after the hour. Hi everyone, we are back from break and we have one question in the Q&A. Yes, and we will be getting to customizations soon. So we'll answer that question later on. So I'll let Malaka take it away.
All right, thanks. On page 12 of your workbook, you'll see a chart that shows the record types on the staff side versus what it's called on the public side. You'll notice, for example, what we call a resource record in the staff side is called collections in the public user interface. I'm going to probably use these typed words interchangeably, so you could use the chart to keep along up with where I'm at. So we will minimize that. So we're going to go more in depth on some of these record types. Obviously, the most popular record type is the collection record. So we'll start there. We'll do a browse for collections. You'll notice on this page that some of these say abstract and some say scope and contents. If a record has an abstract, that's what's going to display on the brief results page, because of course we want it to be brief. If there isn't an abstract, then the scope and contents field will display instead. Let's go down to the lovely Krispy Kreme one record and call that up. So you click on the title and you could actually open the collection level record. We're going to break this up into 5 areas. This area here gives you the title of the collection, the record type, in this case collection. If it was a file, it would say file here and have a different color icon. The identifier or call number, some people have customized that to say call number instead. So there's a customization that you could mark down as I want. The name of the repository here, even if you only have one repository, the name of the repository is going to be here. And the beginning of your breadcrumbs, since this is the collection level record, it stops right here at Krispy Kreme Corporations. If you were at a file, there would probably be an additional subset here, and this link here would be clickable. So that's the first section. This section here, section 2, from the top to where it says collapse all, that is the description information that is recommended in DAX for single level required elements of things that should be above the fold. So your core elements like dates, the scope and contents, obviously, language of materials, etc. So you have a see more here. On this view, they try to make it user-friendly, and so it has a nice pretty white space. But if you have notes that are very, very long, it will truncate for you. So it does the and dash dot dot dot, and I have a see more link. You could click on see more, and then it could go on for miles. And at the end of that, you'll have the see less, so you could squish it back up again. I have no idea what the truncation of that is, but my guess is you could probably set that if you want. The section 3 down here, we call this the accordion section, because by default in most installations anymore, this information is set to show up already opened, but you can collapse it all so that every little box is squished. You can expand it all so that, again, you could see it all. Or if you've collapsed it, you could open up individual sections. So if like I only want to see the subjects, so I could click here and I could see just the subjects. And then I could click here again and it closes. Or I could expand all and it opens again. So this section up here is where your action buttons are. If we were logged in to the staff module, there would be an icon here that says, what does it say? Oh, staff only. And if you clicked on that, then you would go to the staff module for this particular record. But that's only if you are logged into the staff module already in the same browser that you're using to view your public user interface page. So I'm not logged in, so there's no staff only button. You have a citation button that you could click on, and you could get a citation for the item itself or a citation for the finding aid here that you could then copy. There's more information about the citation in your workbook if you wanted to check that out. There's a request button where you could set this up to send requests to your staff so that it goes to like a staff mailbox so that people could request items. Or if you have a third-party request system like Aon, you could set this up so that it makes the Aon request. And this print button only appears on collection level records, and it creates a PDF of the finding aid, resource record, collection record, whatever you want to call it, that you could then print off. But be aware, when this PDF is created from the public user interface, ArchivesSpace is converting this record into HTML and then converting the HTML to PDF. Whereas on the staff side, ArchivesSpace is converting your resource record to EAD and then printing the EAD record using cascading style sheets to the PDF. And so that's one of probably many reasons why the records will look different from each other if you print them off in the public user interface versus the staff interface. And then similar to the browsing landing screen, you have this section over here, but where you could search. Here you could search within the collection itself. So if I click on Greece and I do a search, it brings me up the file box record that has the word Greece in it. To get back to the Krispy Kreme Corporation record itself, I could use these breadcrumbs here to go back to this page. Just like in the browse interface, that landing page, you could search from year to year. So if you have dates in your file records, not just dates on the resource record page, you could search within that. And then there is this hierarchy button here. So it's your hierarchical tree. You could open these up and see individual files, records inside as you go, sort of thing. So if you open up administrative records, you go, oh, miscellaneous. So you're down to your file levels and your series levels. So let's click on, well, if we click here on a series, we get a series record, sub-series. From here, you can go back by using these crumbs up here. And then I'm back on this page. So that's the collection overview page. You'll notice that there's two other tabs. I'm going to go ahead and switch to this tab. This diary of Emma Cummins, Snively, Crozier, Pauling, can we have a longer name? Does not have any hierarchical tree here because it doesn't have any additional series or subseries. So if I try to click on the collection organization tab, I get that little circle boxy thing to indicate that that's not valid. So I wanted to point that out. Krispy Kreme, of course, has tons. So when I click on collection organization here, I get a very, very long page. You remember we looked at the series on the other screen, and it was more user-friendly because I could make it smaller and only read it if I want to. But because this view is an actual view of your finding aid, a scrollable view of your finding aid, everything is open. So here's that series, and I have to scroll down pretty far to get down here to an area, to the rest of the finding aid. So this is the archival object. You could click here. You could click on any of these titles and actually get to the archival object. So it shows your file in boxes. What it doesn't show is all the notes. So if I had a note in the Vernon Rudolph file archival object record, it does not display here. Let me scroll down some. So I hover over frozen products, and you'll notice that this list over here keeps up with me more or less, so that you don't get lost. So if I wanted to open up the frozen products archival object, I could click here or I could click here. Either one will open to the same page. Let's just see if we can open, let's open the articles amendment. So here, the top section has the title of the archival object. It tells you it's a file. It does have a physical instance associated with it. So it tells you it's box 1, folder 16, and it has an identifier associated with it. If it didn't have an identifier associated with it, then it would just be white space. You get your cookie crumbs for the Allen Doe Research Center. The collections record is Krispy Kreme, and then you have some series records and sub-series records that you could use. This articles of amendment is in the articles in the executive records sub-series. Here, just like in the collection records, is the information that's most relevant to this object, but it says here scope and contents is from the collection. So if you think about your archival object record on the staff side, this scope and contents note is not in that archival object record. It is coming from the collection level record, and it's coming over, and that's why it says from the collection. Now the dates on here are actually coming from the archival object record, so that's why it doesn't have whatever dates were associated with the Krispy Kreme record, which was probably a span of dates. And here is the creator, and it too is coming from the collection level record. This is called inheritance. It is something, again, that you could customize, and you would need to do this as part of your setup. What fields you want pulled over into your archival object record. So if you don't want the scope and contents note from the collection record to display in an archival object, you can set that so it doesn't. And even if you have it set to display, if you put a scope and contents field specifically in this archival object record, it will display here instead of the scope and contents from the collection. I hope that made sense. So yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say about that type of record. So we got collection organization, which is the scrollable thing, which is pretty nice, so that you could see where everything is intellectually. And as you know, an intellectually arranged collection may have like 4 things in box 1, and each of those 4 items could be in a separate series. The container inventory will let you see everything that's in a particular box, regardless of where it is intellectually arranged. So you do have additional filters here of the series, if you have series, obviously, that you could narrow things down to. This particular collection has box 1 through however many, but you can have, 3 box 1s associated with a collection if you want. So that's where these additional filters could certainly come in handy, because you might want the box one under the newsletter series, not the box one under the photograph series. We're going to go ahead and just click on box 7 because we can. So box 7 has 4 results. So there are 4 different items in box 7. This screen tells you that it's a file, and it has, so it's in box 7 and it's in folder 1. And then there's the identifiers that are associated with those things. And if you click on the title here, then again, you get to the item itself record with the title and your cookie crumbs, your action buttons. Remember, you only get the print to PDF if you're at the collection level record. You got dates, etc. And then down here where you have the accordion section, you're going to have the physical storage information. So you could get stuck going in circles. If I click on here, then I'm back to this page. And you click on here, and then you go back. So see, you're going in a circle. This container inventory page is not searchable in keyword searching kind of thing. It's only available from either linking from a record, like if I linked on the physical location box 7 number 4, again, I would get back here, or if I was in a record and I clicked on container inventory, I would get here. So that's pretty much it about collection records. Are there any questions about collection records?
Can you, we do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Is using Control F the only way to search the collection overview of a collection? It can be confusing for users if you do a keyword search for a term and then open up a collection from the results and type the same keyword in the search collection and get a message that the term isn't found because the term was in a bio or scoping contents note.
So if I was here and I searched the collection, I might not find it because
you know, when you're searching, it does search notes for those terms as well.
Yes.
But if you search collection, it doesn't show those notes as a record.
Yeah.
So they're asking if Control F is the only way to find the term in like the collection overview.
More or less. I would go to the collection organization page, and I frequently do Control F there because these notes are open. And so then it'll actually find photographs here. But again, if there was a note here under historical data, Control F is not going to find that. You'll notice this, by the way, has this tree here, but it does not have the search collection from year to year. You can customize your configuration so that this search box is available on any of this, on both of these 2 pages. Though I don't know if that would help with the being able to find things in the bio note situation. Do you have anything to add, Brittany?
No, I've only really heard of Control F using the print PDF.
Yeah, print PDF.
Collection organization. I will say, that's it. You can look into customizations. That's like what we've got. There was a question. Is there a field for box location? Example, in our collection, we have 1-3-05-09, which is floor, location, shelf, box, etc.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? No, there's not any that the public sees. However, we have Aeon, and so in the configuration on Aon side and I think ArchivesSpace side, our tech guru figured out a way so that when we put in a request, that it actually pulls that location information and puts it in our request form. But that's all I can tell you. And I don't know if it was something that really needed to be configured on the Aon side, or if it was something that was configured on both sides about what data to pull out, because that data is in the record, obviously somewhere. It's just not available for public to see.
Yeah, because you associate those with top container, but it is a staff only side record. And we did the same thing where we have it associated with the request button. Because you don't want people knowing where things are located. It's a security issue. That's why they don't have it available. There are trainings on using locations and everything if you haven't done that before. But there aren't any more questions specifically tied to this. There are a lot of questions about customization. And I just want to let everyone know, if they've asked about how to customize different parts of this, we will get into that later. And if we haven't answered your question, then we will ask those questions during that time. So we're not forgetting about you.
All right, so we will move on to repository records. Brittany sort of showed you this. This particular repository, when you click on repositories, does have 2 repositories. Even if you only have 1 repository in your instance, you would still get to this screen. It won't just open up the repository record. It'll make you choose. Very annoying, but there you go. So from here, you could click on whichever repository you want to view or search. This is handy, I think, more for staff than it is for our users. This is a very quick way to get all the statistics you probably need for your repository. You could go, oh, we have 11 collections and we have 8 digital material items, 1 unprocessed item, and 9 names in 1 record group. You could click on these icons and boom, you're at the subjects. Now, this isn't all the subject headings in both repositories. When you click on that icon, it's only the subjects in the Allen Doe Research Center. So that's one way to just narrow down if you have an institution where, you know, oh, all the romance novels and information is in this one and all the history is in that one, and I only want to search romance novels. This is one way to do it, by going to that repository. And you could eliminate all the other stuff. So there's that. There's also search the archives. This search box, which looks very similar to this search box, will only search things in the Allen Doe Research Center repository. But it works the same way. You still have the same title, creator, subject, notes, identifier sort of searches, and you could limit to collections, digital materials, that sort of thing. So that is the repository record. I think so. So I could do a search here for cream, and the Krispy Kreme Corporation is in that repository. So yay, I found it. So that's repositories. Now we'll move over to digital materials. Digital materials, again, the only things that will display here are digital materials that are set to publish in the staff side. So if you don't have them set to publish, they won't show up. You have the ability to sort here. You could filter your results by doing a search, either of a term or from year to year, or you could limit by repository, just like you can in almost any one of these search results page. So the record itself is going to look different based on whether it's a single level digital object or a multi-level digital object. We'll first look at the multi-level digital object. So we'll click on dogs. So this the title is dogs. It's a digital record. Here's the identifier, the stuff you're used to seeing. If there had been notes on that dog record, they would be here. And then here's the repository details. But because this is a hierarchical digital object, you'll see a window over here with a tree, just like you would for a collection, so that you could see all the archival digital objects that are associated with the main digital object. So you could click here for like Shih Tzu to get that particular record. So based on how you fill out the digital object record on the staff side, you may get a thumbnail picture of your digital object within the record itself. So that's what this is. You still have the archival object tree here so that if I wanted to go to another record, I could easily. Any notes associated with that particular object would be here. So biographical, historical subjects would be here. If you had any linked external documents, they would be here. And of course, your repository details are there. So let's go and look at a single level. We're going to look at trucks. So this one is a single level record. It tells you that it's a digital record. Here's the identifier. Instead of a picture, because they did not set up a thumbnail in the staff side, you just have an icon. But you could still click on that icon to get to the digital object itself. And we'll close that. Here is the accordion where any notes are. So the dog one was not only multi-level, but it was only a digital object. It was not linked to a resource record. This trucks is linked to a resource record. It's linked to the Krispy Kreme record with the photograph series and the general photographs and in the truck section. So if I want to see the resource record that it's linked to, I could click on here, truck circa late 1930s. And over here, it shows me where I am in relation to the rest of the finding aid. So, and it has this lovely icon so that you know there is a digital object instance associated with this physical instance. So that's pretty handy. And then the information that we saw there. I'm going to go ahead and log into the staff interface. Open link in new tab. Yes, that'd be great. So that I can then refresh this. And now you see that there's the staff only button. So I wanted to show you what this looks like on the staff side. So on the staff side, this is the resource record, the archival object in the resource record. And you'll notice down here, the instances, there's two. There's the physical box for the physical object. And then we also have the digital object linked. And so that's why it displayed with this icon and all this information. If I go to the trucks digital objects record, here in the file version, you'll notice it says on request and it says new here. That is why it just has the icon. There's nothing here that says it's a thumbnail. And actually, due to how this digital object is served up, unless you created a separate thumbnail and put somewhere, it wouldn't actually work. However, if I go here to digital objects and go to dogs, and we go to the Shih Tzu example, you'll notice down here in the file versions, this use statement says thumbnail so that I know what it is, but here it says embed, and that's what's making it so that digital object actually appeared with the pretty picture of the doggy in the public user interface. So we do have videos on digital objects, which will show you how to do this. I'm sure there's help documentation. So I'm not going to go into any more detail than that. But are there any questions about repository records or digital object records before we move on to the subjects, names, and record groups?
Currently none.
Yay!
There's questions about customization.
I know everybody really loves those thumbnails. So just know that it is possible, and it doesn't have to be a customization. So there you go. So unprocessed materials. Some organizations publish their accession records. You can flesh out your accession records to provide context for unprocessed materials by adding content description and condition description, and then publishing these records. Researchers will be able to see the unprocessed materials that may be related to their research. You can add restriction notes that explain how to access these materials. Making accession records public could help you gather information on the interest for these collections and possibly influence your processing priorities. So you don't have to publish your unprocessed materials, but if you want to, then just like the resource record, there's that lovely publish button in the accession record that you could use to publish your unprocessed materials. So you click on unprocessed materials, and if you have any that are set to publish, they will show here. I've only set one to appear. You can, of course, sort by relevance title and year processing, which makes no sense when you only have one, but if you have a lot, it helps. So let's go ahead and open that record. And here's the information that's in the unprocessed materials record for everybody to see. You could request it. I have the staff only button available now because I am logged in. You can customize, again, your interface so that unprocessed materials does not appear in this tab across the top. However, I discovered, and I don't think they've fixed it, if you've accidentally set something to publish, doing a keyword search might still find it and bring it up, even though there isn't a tab where you could browse it. So be aware of that. Subjects and names. Subject and agent records.
Alaka,
Yes.
do you mind answering a digital objects question before we get too far?
Sure, I could answer a digital objects question.
Cool. So we have a question. What if you have a digital and physical version in the same collection? Is there a field to display both?
Let's go back here to trucks. That's what this one is. So here's just the digital object record. So if somebody came in and says, I just want to know what your digital objects are, they could click on digital materials and find just this truck record. But if they're in the Krispy Kreme record itself, and they go down here to, well, I'm going to search the collection. It's so much easier. This record is very long. RUCKS. So if they go down here to trucks circa late 1930s, so you can see I'm in the Krispy Kreme record, photographs, general photographs, trucks. So this is telling you that I have a physical picture of that truck in box 23, folder 11. But this is telling you I also have a digitized image of that truck. Does that make sense?
Yes. Well, to me it does. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you've been around a little while.
Yeah. So if it's linked to an archival object or the collection record, you should be able to see it displayed on the public side in that archival object record.
Yes. All right.
And they said thank you. So we're good to go.
Yay. So subject and agent records are a great way for researchers to search across your entire archives for a specific person, institution, or topic. ArchivesSpace lets us use several different standards like the Library of Congress or the Getty Thesaurus, but you can also create a local terminology, which may help if you are working with papers or of underserved populations. For corporate names, ArchivesSpace allows you to keep track of changes, mergers, etc., along with the time period each name was valid. So you might find that helpful. You could use broad or more complex subject records depending on your needs. For instance, you could use just steel industry, or if your institution has a lot of records about the steel industry, you may want to use a more complex subject record for steel industry labor disputes in the 20th century in Pennsylvania. You can specify a search by subjects or creators in the PUI. So if I click on this magnifying glass, I'll get back to the search boxes. So here you got subject or creator, so that you could just search by creator, for example. So I'm going to click on Cummins, Cummins. So this search brings up any record that has Cummins as a creator in it. So from here, you click on that and you'll see, oh yeah, here is Cummins. Clicking here will take me right to the Cummins record, which we'll come back to. So just like everything, there's the title here, the top. So this is the display form of the name. It tells you it's a person. If this was a corporate body, it would say corporate. Any notes associated with this person or linked records. Oh, let's look at the staff view. I don't know what they call them. So here in, and this is set to, I mean, you can make it light mode, but I have mine set to see everything. So if I go down here to name forms, I'll point out that, so you got make authoritative and you have display name. A lot of people make their name authoritative and it's the display name, but for this example, I wanted to show you what happens when you don't. So this is just the display name and not the make authoritative name. Here's the name itself. And this form is the authorized form, just Emma Cummins with the dates. Also, and there's Emma Pauling. Also associated with the date here in this description information section is her place of birth and her occupation. So that information is what's here. So her occupation is a telegrapher. Her place of birth is places. The record that's linked to this name heading, obviously, is the Diary of Emma Cummins. The display form of the name was that very long form. However, here are the other forms of names that we had mentioned. So that's a name record that we were able to access using the search. And obviously, you could do a search for a subject, photograph, and search. I know there's supposed to be OTOGRAPHS. Okay, it was Krispy Kreme. So just like the agent record, this supposedly has a subject heading that has the word photographs in it. And ta-da, it does. It's right here, photographs 20th century. So here is the subject record. It tells you here's the term. It's a subject heading. Here's the subject source. This is from the Art and Architecture Thesaurus. This is the record that it's linked to. And over here's a little bit more about it. So the photographs itself is a genre term and the 20th century is a temporal term. You could also browse subjects. This browses all the subjects in all your repositories. So there's 127 of these. You can search within these results for a specific subject heading. And You could choose which repository you want, and you could only sort by title ascending or descending. So subject records don't have a lot of information associated with them, so we already saw one. We'll go back to names. They're a lot more exciting. Let's do Krispy Kreme. So you could search or filter your results. Here we have Rudolph Vernon Carver when I did a search, and we have the Krispy Kreme Donut Corporation. You might go, huh, that's weird. But if we look at the Krispy Kreme Donut Corporation record, you'll notice instead of saying person here, it says organization. Again, here's any linked records that are using that term. Name forms. So this is also known by the following name, Krispy Kreme Donuts. And then the related name is Rudolph Vernon Carver. He's actually the founder. And so he is associated with the name. And that's why he showed up when we did a search of Krispy Kreme. So those are those kinds of records. Let's go look at record groups. A lot of people don't use record groups at all. So again, you could customize your tabs here and get rid of them. But if you do have them, this is how they would display. I set these up. Each one is in a different repository here. You'll notice that the Dewey Decimal Classification record has the show subgroups, whereas the Library of Congress does not. My guess is because when you set up the Dewey record, I'll show you what it looks like. In the name field, I think it's expecting a number, whereas of course Library of Congress starts with a letter, and so ArchivesSpace just didn't know what to do with it. You could filter your results. Again, you could pick what repository you want. You could sort by identifier, relevance, title, and year. So that's a new one. The identifier is actually new. If I click on this plus sign for show subgroups, the subgroups associated with this classification will appear. So they could appear here and I could get directly to the 300s with Dewey, or I could click on the Dewey classification. So that group record right there. And then over here are the subgroups. And so then I could come here and click on the Dewey 300 classification. So this is the 300, it's social sciences. Here are the records it's associated with, which is just the one. From here, I could click on the 700s, for example, and here there are 2 records associated with the 700s. Let's look at this in the staff view. So here's the Dewey classification. Here are the individual records underneath it, the children records. So the identifier here is Dewey /700, and then the title starts with a 700. And so that's the only reason I can think for that plus thing showing in one, but not the other. The reason those 2 records appear is because I have them as record links here. So that's pretty much it with classification. So any questions about these detailed record types before we take another break?
Nothing in the Q&A yet.
All right, so let's take a 10-minute break and we'll come back and have plenty of time to talk about customization.
See you all back at 47 after the hour.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Um, we're going to be on page 29 of your workbook if you want to read along. So the staff and the public interface that are provided by ArchivesSpace can be customized for local use. Repository managers can provide simple customizations of the staff interface using tools available in the staff interface. More extensive customizations to both the public and the staff interface can be made by defining local files in the plugins folder of the application. For the public interface, it can be customized for local use by enabling the local plugin in the application's configuration file, and they give a file location. Then adding files in the plugin's local folder. Code placed in this directory should mirror that of the core application and will function as an override to replace the functions provided by the files they replace. Modifying these files and directories will require direct access to the application files on the server. Instructions for developing themes and customizations are found on the GitHub site, and there is a web address. If you want to customize, I recommend you go there. It has some pretty interesting data and information. But please note that not all hosting providers are able to support all plugins. You will need to contact your hosting provider directly about support options for plugins. I know somebody asked if there was any nifty cool customizations, and so I've got a couple to show you. This one is the Atlanta University Center Robert Woodruff Library. Brittany used to work here, so I'm sure she could chime in with some of their customizations that I might miss. Obviously, they've got a cool logo up here. It has information down here, which you obviously don't get on the out of the box view. And then they customize this carousel where they display some of their digital objects. And this is something that doesn't need to be set in the back office. I mean, the changing of the images does not need to be set in the back office. Brittany, would you like to explain a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so the way the plugin was designed, it's actually you're able to edit it in the staff interface. So most things that you do, like customization wise in the PUI, cannot be edited in the staff interface. This plugin was designed so that we, rather than having to pay the contractor who did it for us, could do it when I worked at the AUC. So it has like a whole like setup to where you go to like drop down, you choose the plugin, and then you can plug in the URL for where that image comes from the like digital content management system, and it pulls it and just displays it. So yeah, it's pretty nifty in that way, because most of the time you're not able to edit these things that way. So
And the coding for that is available on the ArchivesSpace site. So if you wanted it, you could add it. Here is one from Middlebury. You notice they made a nice border, and it's the logo again. They have different options up here so that they even changed the names. I'm pretty sure this is probably the record groups. Yes. So instead of record groups, apparently they put college archives because it means more to them. They do not have the unprocessed materials tab, and they've edited that out. So, but you could still click here and you get a little bit of help down here. And another one is the USC libraries. They have even fewer tabs, collections, subjects, and names. They put a lot of information at the top and then the search box instead of having it under the search box like a lot of places do. And then here's ours, which looks more like the out of the box, but with just some information. We didn't want to get too fancy. So that is some customizations that you could see. Um, uh, 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 let's see. Let me go down here. Customizations to the public user interface. There are many features within the ArchivesSpace public user interface that can be customized within the configuration files of ArchivesSpace. There's a list of some common customizations in your workbook, things like adding branding, changing the header, changing the logo, enabling human readable URLs, which we'll go over a little bit. I talked a little bit about inheritance. So what kind of notes would be on your file records and your series records that come from the collection level record, that sort of thing. So let's go to the, yeah, we're going to go to a website. In your workbook is a link to this site, which is the ArchivesSpace public user interface. It has information about configuration. And here where it says to see the full list of available options, see the file, and then this will take us to a GitHub. Now this is, for those people who are used to seeing GitHub, this is kind of the README file. These are all comments, because you could tell, of course, because it has the little hash mark. And this is actually the code. The thing in the comments tells you a little bit about what that particular command stanza does. And so even if you're not the one that's going to be setting up your ArchivesSpace instance, or even if your ArchivesSpace instance has already been set up, I would recommend reading through these comments. This is a lot of the stuff that you can have configured when you install it. So if you already have it installed and, oh, it's time for an upgrade, this is a good time. An upgrade is a good time to go through these and figure out, well, maybe we want to turn this on. Maybe you want to turn that on. For example, in here somewhere is a stanza that lets you set how many records appear on the page when you do a search. I think the default is something like 10 in the staff module, and you could bump it up to 25 so that you're not always having to click next, next. Let me go down to line 483. It's long. So yes, here is the stanza that says, the following determine which tabs are on the main horizontal menu. I think somebody asked about that. So if you want to hide tabs, it's backwards. False means it's on and true means it's off. So there you go. So yes, I recommend reading through this. There is a tutorial likely on YouTube that I think Valerie did that talks a lot more in depth about this, and some of the common customizations that you could use this for, which is very helpful. And now I'm going to show, okay, human readable URLs. If a institution does not have human readable URLs set up, the address line in the browser will look like this. It'll have the library's website address. Here it'll say repositories, and it'll give you the repository number, which in this case is 2. If you have multiple repositories, ArchivesSpace will automatically number it. So it's not like you went, oh, I want this one to be number 2. So you're not the one that's setting these numbers up. And then resources, and it's the resource record number 130. So that's what this is. But if you have human readable URLs set up, it will say Anthony Milano glass negative collection, for example. So that's something, it's easier if you're talking to a patron and said, oh, well, it's our library followed by resources and then here. And it's much easier to explain how that works. However, human readable URLs are not They're not like a handle or an arc. If I change the spelling of Anthony to be Ney in the staff interface, that will automatically change this human readable URL to Anthony with a EY in this address. However, behind the scenes, the Anthony Milano Glass Negative collection will still have that unique resource record ID number generated by ArchivesSpace. So if this was record number 138, it will still be number 138. So if you want to turn this on so that you have human readable URLs, again, you need to do it at the point of installation, or if you're getting an upgrade and you go, hey, I want to turn this on, that would be a good time you could do it too, since you're more or less taking it down and re-putting it back up. So if you turn on human readable URLs, this is what you're going to see in the staff interface. You're going to see this thing that says slug. And it will be automatically filled out just like the agent records, where it automatically fills out the display form of the name and puts the date and stuff there, unless you unselect automatically generate slug. So then you could make your own, I believe. So that's what that looks like. And then if you already have an installation and you want slugs to be retroactively applied to all your existing resource records, there are a couple of background jobs that you could run that will do this, but be aware that they are very resource intensive depending on the size of your database. So you might want to run it overnight as opposed to doing it during the day. So that is human readable URL. Now I got to go to a different spot, 34. So now I'm on page 34. Let's go back here. So plugins are a powerful feature designed to allow you to change most aspects of how the application behaves. Plugins provide a mechanism to customize ArchivesSpace by overriding or extending functions without changing the core code base. As they are self-contained, they also permit the ready sharing of packages of customization between ArchivesSpace instances. Plugins are enabled across an entire ArchivesSpace instance. To apply a plugin, you will need to contact the system administrator or hosting provider responsible for managing your ArchivesSpace implementation. So, and again, be aware that not all hosting providers are able to supply all plugins. You will need to contact your hosting provider directly about support options for plugins. If you're going to do a plugin, make sure you back up your implementation of ArchivesSpace before making any modifications. Plugins also need to be maintained and tested every time you update ArchivesSpace. Keep in mind, the more plugins you enable, the more testing and maintenance you're going to have to do every time there is an upgrade to ArchivesSpace. On page 34 are links to locations that have some plugins. So for example, here is ArchivesSpace GitHub repository of plugins. So there's the LCNAF one that of course comes with ArchivesSpace already implemented. There are other repositories down here. And so like RDA template fix, these sort of things that are available. These were generated by ArchivesSpace. They're part of the ArchivesSpace. They might not be part of the implementation, but they've been more or less blessed by ArchivesSpace. Whereas they have community generated and self-reported plugins at Awesome ArchivesSpace. So this is, you know, if you have a lot of developers and they're really good at making plugins, they could add their stuff here, just like everybody else has been doing. So here's plugins, import, export data plugins. searching plugins. Duke's done a lot. Administrative authentication, additional backend functionality. So you could read all about these. Let's see, like if we click on item linker here, it'll probably go to Denver's site. These README files are your friend. You read them and they'll tell you a little bit about it, what it does, and additional notes. Luckily, GitHub is programmers have adopted it everywhere, so it's not like you're going to have to go to your system admin and go, let me explain GitHub. They probably already know about GitHub because most of the rest of us are probably like, I don't really know a lot about GitHub. There's also a ArchivesSpace YouTube channel that demos some of these plugins. The listservs, people will share their plugins on the listservs because somebody might write, oh, I really wish I could do this, that, and the other thing. And somebody will go, oh, well, I have a plugin for that, but it only works with our data. But if you are willing to customize and et cetera, et cetera. So again, you can see where you need to get really friendly with your system administrators and computer coders, or if you're hosted, you're going to have to talk to them about, I'm sure if you have to modify a plugin, it's probably going to cost you extra money if you could do it at all. So be aware of that. Any questions about customization?
We have a few. I do want to point out that if you're hosted and you have the code and it doesn't have to be modified, only has like, few modifications.
Plug and play, yeah.
Yeah, they will just, if you send them the code, they will do it. So that kind of thing. But they can't have a lot of modifications if you're hosted. And there are lists of consultants that can be provided to you through ArchivesSpace, and some of them may be able to do like development work around customizations for the PUI. So check out the website for that. But in the Q&A we have, so one of them is there a way to change where some information appears when viewing collections, such as, is there a way to switch where abstract and scope and contents are shown?
I'm sure there is, but it would be a lot of work. And again, it would be best to do it as a plugin, so that you're not overriding the core content. Because if you do it for the core content and not as a plugin, then you get an upgrade. You're going to have to do it again and again and again every time. So you would need to figure out how to do it as a plugin.
Yeah. I would also, I put a list in the chat of people using ArchivesSpace, and if they have a PUI, it links out to that PUI. So you can visit all of those and see if they have what you want. This is literally what I did when I worked at the AUC. And I just made that list for our developer. But you can also reach out to people or reach out on the listserv and be like, hey, I saw that you have this change. How did you do that? Would you be willing to provide your code? People have asked me that all the time. And if you can provide it, that's great. So ArchivesSpace Community is great. So use us. And then another question, is there a way to change the print function to either be the EAD style version finding aid or a custom finding aid instead of the HTML style finding aid?
Well, it is going to change the record to HTML and then convert that using CSS to the PDF. But I believe you could get into the CSS itself for both the public and the staff. And if you're comfortable altering the CSS, you could make it look however you want. Correct, Betty? Is that right, Brittany? I've never done it, but that's what I've heard. I'm like, oh.
I do know that at Yale, they generate the EADs before. So what you click print on is the EAD one and not the HTML one. I would visit their site to check that out. There was another question about the templates, if there's templates available for the PDF generated out of the box. I'm not sure of any.
No, I think they just used the CSS. I mean, similar to the configuration file I showed you. There might be remarks in there, but yeah, you need to be comfortable with the CSS and be able to read it and go, oh, that's where that addition is coming from, and I don't want it, so I'm gonna comment it out or whatever.
Oh, well. Yeah. Yeah, the PDF has been an issue in the past. So there is a way for you to put in feature requests, and I'll put that link in the chat. So enough people in the community want something changed, it could become a part of the development and something that ArchivesSpace looks into. And I think it's been tossed around that the PDF, and it has changed before. And someone put in the chat that there is an open JIRA ticket about how the PUI PDF displays. So comment on that, because the more comments it gets and the more people providing input, the more priority it gets. And thank you for sharing that. So we have 2 more questions and then someone who's willing to provide help for another. So we'll get to the questions first. How would we actually go about customizing an install to add the search bar from collection overview to collection org and container inventory?
So you want to be able to change this part?
Yeah, so where it has search collection and collection overview, how do you know how to go about adding?
Oh, no, I just said, hey, Saran, don't add that. But I believe it's in that architecture one, I believe. What page was that on? 29, I believe, is the page where it has the link. So you go here and you click on here. I think it's in here.
So it's in the config file.
It's in the config file, I believe.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a simple thing to change. It's something that you just basically have to turn on.
Yeah. And if your system administrator doesn't want to find it, you could read through and you go, okay, I need you to change this from a 1 to a 2 or whatever it is.
Yeah. Thank you. So another question, where do you find the carousel plugin? That's a good question. Melissa, were you able to find it? Because I just remember sharing the code with people when I was at the AUC.
No, it's probably, I haven't actually found it in the GitHubs, but you could always, did it have a name? We could always googly it.
I cannot remember what we called it besides image carousel. Yeah. I do know that our developer put the code into Bitbucket. That's the one I'm thinking of. It was yes. Someone found it.
So yeah, definitely it was in this presentation and there might be a link then.
Yeah. Someone put a link to it in our chat. So it's in Bitbucket and it's available there. Don't know why we didn't put it in GitHub, but feel free to copy it from there. And then we have, so the person who asked about changing abstract and scope and contents is shown in collection overview. You can email C Norton 9, our participant C Norton 9, is they're actually in the process of developing a plugin to do exactly this for their institution, which is the University of Rochester. And they can send it your way when it is ready. But it's low down on their project priorities. So, but it's something they intend to do as part of their implementation push. So,
See, and that's exactly how the email listservs work.
yes. So send that on a listserv and then are that, and you two get together, discuss it.
All right, if there's no more questions, I will turn it back over to Brittany.
Well, we do have, I don't know what, so we have, when I look at your handout for the titles, it indicates certain terms are default, but they don't show on our PUI. For example, our PUI says accession and not unprocessed material. I can quickly answer this. So at the beginning of the training, we mentioned that if you don't have version 2.0, or I think it's 2.1 and newer, it will not, some things of the PUI will not show as we have here. And it could be that you just changed it to show accession. So you might want to talk to system admin to figure that out. Because the default now is to have it say unprocessed materials unless you have it changed. But versions before that could have said accessions. And I hope that helps. Cool. Okay, so my turn. I will share my screen. So if you have any more questions about customizations, we will be doing a Q&A wrap up here at the end. So feel free to continue putting questions in the QA about anything that we've discussed today. But right now we're going to discuss considerations for staff and researchers. So how do you help others understand the public user interface when they're using it? As Miloche mentioned, I used to work for the Atlanta University Center in Atlanta. And as a part of that work, I did a whole user study on the ArchivesSpace public user interface versus what we were using currently at that time, which was XTF, like which interface would be best for our users. And we went with the public user interface. And but we decided we couldn't go out of the box because we wanted it to best suit our researchers. So we did a few customizations that would help us help our users understand. And some of these you can ask to have done, like the image carousel, have the text here so people have a brief like understanding of how to search things. And then some can be done. But I just wanted to go over a few in case you can do these. And also it's just outside of this, you can provide documentation similarly. So as a part of our tabs up here, you'll see that we added one that does not appear out of the box, and it's called help. So this is an FAQ. If you have the ability to add this here, that's great. But if you just have a separate page, guide, or something, it's always good to have like frequently asked questions for researchers so they understand like how to navigate without constantly emailing you or calling you, even though you should be prepared to help them. And hopefully this training will help you help them. So this goes over what types of collections, what a finding aid is, how to get started with their search, what are unprocessed materials so they know because that tab is available. And then how to filter results, how to cite. And then we also have tutorial videos. Videos are great for both researchers and your staff so they can get comfortable with the different aspects of ArchivesSpace. So these tutorials go over how to find digital materials because people may not be aware of all the different ways of finding them through the finding aids as well as the tab and all of that. Like, how does that work? Why does a thumbnail appear for some? That kind of thing. The tutorial videos are great. And we have these embedded from YouTube in our ArchivesSpace instance on this help page, but we also have a guide, and I'll show you the guide in a moment. And then we have one on the request button. So this goes over how the request button functions for the AUC and how to use it and what they are requesting when they use that button. So it's super helpful in that way. And these videos just help researchers know more, and also like staff. So when they're trying to help someone learn about the PUI, a lot of us may work with other people who aren't archivists or maybe librarians, and they're trying to help people navigate finding aids. So they can send people to these pages or show them this or watch these themselves. And then it just, since COVID happened, they haven't updated this since then, but that goes over how to access materials when no one's publicly there, and how can we help you. So that is the Q&A here. I do, when training, like, or not training, when discussing with researchers how to use finding aids and how to use ArchivesSpace specifically, it's also good to just have like a guide that goes over what this is. At the AUC, we developed a LibGuide or a research guide. This is like part of the Lib apps that a lot of academic libraries use. So we developed a finding aids guide that goes over the different aspects of a finding aid, but then talks more about how that looks in ArchivesSpace. A lot of institutions have these. There's examples linked in the agenda, and I recommend you looking at those and using them to help make your own for your researchers. So it goes over what a collection is, series, subseries, description of material. It goes over what a finding aid is, includes this PDF, and I'll show you a larger version of that in a minute. This PDF is what we call the quick reference guide. And this gives like screenshots and like brief info on the various aspects of a finding aid when you're in ArchivesSpace. Like, oh, this is the collection record. This is the buttons you want. This is what that means, that kind of thing. It goes through digital material records as well. And then it has tabs on how to browse. Similar to how we went over browsing earlier, this gives a brief overview of browsing as well as searching. And for any of these, I recommend creating video tutorials just to have another way of for people to learn how to do this, not just text and images, like going through it step by step. You can record those via Zoom or any other like video conferencing you have, like Microsoft Teams. Like you can record your screen using those. Then we have understanding records. So this goes over the collection overview page, the collection organization, container inventory, what a series or file record looks like, that kind of thing. Just like how Miloche went over earlier, this goes over what each of these notes field is and what kind of information in there for someone who's like, I don't know what extent means. So they know the extent is the amount of physical quantity of the material being described. So they're not confused by that. And they're like, don't know what creator is, that kind of thing. Because a lot of these terms can be new for researchers, especially students. They may not have ever been made aware of archives. So this way you have something to point them to. And then again, we have digital materials. This also has the video in it, but also breaks it down into screenshots with text and has info on how to get to the digital content management system where these digital materials actually live. And then requesting materials, again, goes over how to do such with a video and then text and screenshots. So different ways of learning the information. The requesting materials button at the AUC is a little different. So you'll see it doesn't appear at collection level. It only appears at files and series level. And then they customize it to include more information and to have more text fields. So this is another customization you may want to consider, especially if you don't have it connected to Aon. So it has date, time, and then it has the hours down here. So when people are requesting a date and time, they're not requesting date and time that don't actually work. And then this gets sent to the archives email and follow up kind of thing. Let's see. So this is the reference guide that was in the research guide. So this is a way of helping people navigate. You can print this off and have it at your reference desk and just be able to hand it to people, take it to instruction sessions when you're teaching about archives, that kind of thing, just so you have something that they can hold or look at. But it's also available online. There is a smaller version of it that just includes like collections. And so it's like a print front and back. Here's a one-pager on how to navigate finding aids kind of thing. I will say that these have come in handy. They really help with navigating the public user interface and teaching researchers how to use it. Video tutorials are also so great and useful because it's just a way to actively engage them and something they can refer back to. At Georgia State, we have a whole guide of research video. Let me navigate to them. So at Georgia State in our special collections and archives, we provide like research guides for various things. But we also have one for our reference videos, and we provide those to classes all the time. I should have this ready. Apologies, guys. Where is it? There we go. So in this, we just have a research guide of videos on how to do various things within special collections archives. And we have one specifically on navigating ArchivesSpace and how to use finding aids. So that helps people use ArchivesSpace better, and it's specific to Georgia State, that kind of thing. So that's another example of like creating videos. So again, so that's how you can help researchers like provide multiple ways of instructing them, both in person, in classrooms, when you're seeing them, in email. Email, you can share these videos, share the quick reference guide. When you're working with your staff, I always have done trainings with staff. So you train them on how they do the staff side. So it's also important to train them on how to use the public user interface, similar to how you're attending this training. So you can provide them with the recording of this, but you can also just do like staff trainings. When we moved to the public user interface at ArchivesSpace, at the AUC, we did a training with all the librarians because we had moved to a new system. They weren't aware of it. So we did a whole training on how does this work? And we like showed it like how they use library databases. So there's something they're familiar with. So that's all. It's a good thing to do is have trainings and then maybe have meetings with them if they're still confused. But that way they're getting people to use ArchivesSpace and they have the resources. And then in one of my trainings, we provided this link to this Google Drive of resources. And this is just example of using like ArchivesSpace and like creating guides for ArchivesSpace, that kind of thing. But there are examples in your agenda. So I think that was everything I wanted to say about considerations for staff and researchers. Oh, before we go, you want to be aware of who your audience is, like who are you teaching? If it's fellow staff, you can use the terms because they're usually familiar with it, but students and researchers, especially those new to archives, may not be, and so it may take time, and you may want to change up the terminology and the way that you are instructing them. So that's why I'm always like video tutorials, like quick ones, less than a minute if you can do it, split them up if you have to, so it takes less time. And they're like, oh, okay, that's all I wanted to know was how to search this. All I wanted to know was how do I request something, that kind of thing. So it's not a tutorial on all of ArchivesSpace, like the 3-hour we have, but like little bits of it so they can digest it easily. So they can manage and find what they need. Yeah, so I hope that helps. We'll do questions now.
So yeah, there's a question. Would you be willing to share the editable files for some of these resources you use so we can use it as a template?
Yeah, I have to find, I have a PDF of the quick reference. I'll have to see if I have a Word doc, but you should be able to still edit a PDF. But I'll look and see if I can find it. I will do that now. I'll share the links that I have for the PDFs right now. So you can download them and then edit them in your own system. So I'm sharing in the chat the 2 versions of the quick reference guide. Any other questions about anything? Anything to do with the public user interface?
Yeah. Is there any advantage to Java 8 or is it 11? We don't have our instance installed yet. Oh yeah, I have no idea. I leave that to our IT guys.
Yeah, that's probably a listserv question if you're a member of ArchivesSpace, to put it out on the listserv. There will be a recording of this training made available, usually a few days after the fact. So be on the lookout for an email about that.
And
Okay.
as Brittany said, that they you know, the ArchivesSpace public user interface is not stagnant. It's still being developed. So if you have issues, check Jira to see if it's already been submitted, and if it has, comment on it so that it moves up in priorities. And if it hasn't, you could send it out to the listserv to see if it's like a you specific need or if other people would be interested. And if it is, there are instructions for how to submit an issue in Jira. And then you could go back to the listserv and say, hey, I submitted this issue if you guys want to comment on it. So
Yeah, the more people involved, the more priority it gets. And there are groups of people, there's whole councils who work on these. So it's not lost in the void, we promise. I would like to mention that there are a lot of great links provided in your agenda, which is in the Google Drive. You get to keep that and the workbook. So remember to download those. The links also provide a PowerPoint on providing reference with ArchivesSpace. And that's a whole presentation on how to do such using the various record types. So just look at that. There's also a link for a workshop evaluation. So feel free to fill that out and share feedback with us trainers. But if there are no other questions, we're going to let you guys have the rest of the day. And yeah, anything from you, Malaka, before we go?
nope, that's it. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you for attending. Have a great rest of your day.